In today's video, we're going to talk about what we expect in the 2025 model launch based on rumors and leaked photos. We're going to really focus on the Softail family because there's a lot of stuff there that's kind of leaked out since they put the carryover models up on Harley Davidson's website on January 2nd. Hi, I'm Mike with Riding in the Ozarks, and welcome to the channel if you're new here, and welcome back if you're a repeat offender. This video is broke up with timestamps, so if you want to skip around, you can use the timestamps down below to jump ahead. If you like this video, I'd appreciate a big thumbs up. Maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you dig the content after you've watched the video. 1. And this isn't a new prediction. I've said this in a video before, but I expect a 35th anniversary edition FatBoy in 2025. The question will be, will they save it back as a mid-year release like an icon model, or will we see it on January 23rd? And what will they do for the 35th anniversary FatBoy? They did a 30th anniversary in 2020 that was blacked out with gold accents. And I have reasons that I think they would do maybe blacked out with red accents this year. Why red accents? Well, because they did that on the motor for the 2024 CVO Road Glide ST. So they already have those red accented parts. And there was a leaked photo that I actually found on the website when they were updating it for the carryover models. Harley Davidson since has gone back and kind of blacked part of it out, but it showed an air intake with red lettering in it. We're going to talk more about that photo in a minute, but red lettering on the intake, red accents on the motor. It's low-hanging fruit for Harley Davidson, easy for them to do, but still gives it a kind of a cool special effect. So I think the 35th anniversary FatBoy will most likely have red accents on the motor or something like that, unless they're going to try and do it as an icon model. Then they may do something a little more classic, reminiscent of the early day FatBoys. 2, larger or more powerful motors for the Softails. I've said that before, and I think it's going to be a more powerful 117, and the photo I found when they were updating the website shows an air intake that says Milwaukee 8 117 high output. So I definitely think we are going to get a 117 that puts out more power. What does high output mean? Well, in 2023, Harley Davidson did a mid-year launch, 23.5 is what they called them, for the CVO Street Glide and Road Glide that had a 121 variable valve timing engine in it. In 2024, they did a CVO Road Glide ST with the 121, but without the variable timing, and they called it high output. And the main differences, besides the fact that it had VVT removed, was a high performance cam and a high performance air intake. And I think that's what they're going to do on these 117 high output models or engines. And I'm going to guess we're going to get between 8 and 10 horsepower increase based on the differences we've seen in the 121 CVO variable valve timing models versus the 121 high output model. There was about a 10 or 12 horsepower gain there. So I think we're going to see 8 to 10 probably in the 117. 3, what models are going to get the 117? Well, there's another photo that was put out on a Harley Davidson dealer in the US's website on the day that the carryover models were announced back on January 2nd. And that photo has since been taken down in the last week, but it was there for several days. I've got a high-res copy of it from the original website. I know some other people have been passing it around. I've had people email it to me and stuff. But this photo shows a 117 high output on a Lowrider S and a Lowrider ST. Now we're going to come back and talk about some stuff in that photo in a minute, but there is definitely red lettering on those intakes. I believe that to be the high output intake that I already discovered. So we know the Lowrider S and the Lowrider ST are getting it. What other models does it make sense? Well, I think they may bring the Street Bob up to a 117, but probably not the high output. I would bring the FatBoy up to the 117, probably not the high output unless I was doing it on the anniversary edition, just to kind of differentiate those models. Now, what happens with the Softail standard that's been on a 107? We're going to talk about that in a minute, but I think the heritage that's on a 114 is probably just going to stay there. I don't think it necessarily makes sense for them to move that up to the 117 right now. Now that probably makes you think, well, if they're not going to move the heritage up to a 117, Why wasn't it released as a carryover model if it's not getting some kind of engine upgrade or update, you know? Well, I have a theory about that, and we're gonna get into that next. 4. So if you look at the photo I showed you earlier with the high output 117 air intake on it, you can see that this grip in the background is kind of blurred out of focus and stuff. And Harley Davidson does these kinds of things. But that grip on that Lowrider S, that looks like a Lowrider S in brilliant red to me, is not the same as it was in previous models. The outgoing model Lowrider S has a smooth grip. And here's a shot of it with the controls. And I think the controls in the blurry photo are different than they were on the previous models, on the outgoing models. So what controls are these? Well, so here's a shot of the Nightster Special grips, which are kind of checkered like this. And it has different controls up there, but I'm not sure that's these controls. Now here are the controls on a new Street Glide, and the OEM grips on those are kind of the same checkered pattern. Now the housing for the controls on these are kind of bigger. I've got a 2024 Street Glide right here and stuff, although I don't have OEM grips on mine because I already did heated grips on it and stuff. So I got some shots from a new model, and when I compare them and I look at my bike and I took a picture of it and tried to blur it and then took a picture of it clear, I really think the controls that we're seeing in this blurry photo are the same controls that are on the new Street Glides and Road Glides. And I think that makes sense, especially from a manufacturing perspective for Harley Davidson. If you haven't seen my video on that, the Revolution Max models in 2025 are going to be made in Thailand, not in the US. So if they use the controls from the Revolution Max models, they would be exporting those parts into the US just for the cruisers. And I don't think that makes as much sense when they already have to have those parts on hand for the Street Glides and Road Glides. So I think it simplifies the manufacturing for them. And another reason I think the Street Glide and Road Glide controls make sense is because they already have the button configuration and everything else for ride modes. Plus, if you get used to that on a Softail, then you move up to the touring model, it's the same. I think that makes sense for Harley Davidson to use the controls on there. And I think by changing the controls on all of the Softail models to that is why they are not being seen as a carryover model. Because they sure couldn't put a 114 Heritage out with new controls and everybody not expect them to do it on all the models. So they have to hold that back. So I think that's what's going on, why there's no carryover models and what's going on with those controls. And I've been saying that I expected more models to get these rider safety enhancements and stuff to comply with EU regulations and the stuff that other countries want. So again, I think it makes sense. That's my suspicion of what's going on with these controls in this photo. 5. Now let's look at this photo. Somebody sent me this photo early during the day of the website being updated for the carryover models. By 2:30, 3 o'clock, I had somebody send it to me. It was on the dealer's website. I'm not going to say who because I've been told that dealers could be fined as much as $5,000 for putting the wrong verbiage in something they post. For if they put, this is why some dealers don't put prices on their website anymore, because if they put a price on there and then Harley does a mid-year change and they don't get their website updated, they can be fined for having the wrong price on the website. To me, it seems like you're punishing your dealers. Now, if they do something wrong intentionally, that's one thing, but if it's an honest mistake, I feel like you're being a little hard on the dealers, and that's probably not helping the relationship with the dealers and the motor company right now. But that's their business to handle, not mine. But this photo's been taken down because I'm sure it wasn't supposed to be up, because it does show what looks to me like a Lowrider S in brilliant red and a Lowrider ST in the new Iron Horse Metallic, both with that 117 high output intake on. You can see the red lettering on there. But there's a couple other things in this photo that jump out at me. First being the 2-into-1 exhaust. Now, if you are familiar with the cruisers in recent years, they all have staggered duals on the same side, on the right side, except for maybe the exception of the Sport Glide, which they discontinued in the US in 2022. It's still around in other countries, but I hear this is the last year for the Sport Glide as well. Now, my wife has a Sport Glide with the 2-into-1 exhaust, so I'm very familiar with looking at a Softail with a 2-into-1 with these bags, and I felt like the bags looked different. And I got to really looking at them, trying to figure reference points out so I could tell if they are different. If you're not familiar with the clamshell bags, which I am because my wife's had Sport Glide for several years, and a friend of mine just bought a Lowrider ST in Tobacco Fade, my buddy Steve. The bags on the right side is shorter in height than the bag on the left side. And that is assumed to be because of the dual staggered exhaust to make more clearance for the exhaust on the right side. Going into a 2-into-1 exhaust means they can make that bag maybe even with the other bag, make them look the same. A lot of people complain about them having different heights when you look at the bike from the back. So I think that's what's going on there. And as a reference point, what I have found, here's a photo from a Lowrider El Diablo that still has the reflectors on it. We removed the reflectors on my wife's saddlebag, so I can't use it as an example, but I have a photo here from a Lowrider ST El Diablo, and you can see the OEM reflector on the bag there and how the reflector is right at the bottom of the bag. Now, if you look at this photo, that reflector looks like it's a couple of inches up from the bottom of the bag. It is not right at the bag like it is on this other photo. So I think the bag might be taller. At least it appears to be taller to me than what it was. Something definitely feels like it's different related to that saddlebag on the right side of the Lowrider ST. The other thing that kind of stood out at me in this photo when I was looking at it and trying to feel like, what looks different here? The gauge from the fairing on the Lowrider S looks a little more prominent, a little easier to see. Now, at first I thought maybe they were going to put the gauge from the Nightster Special on there, the digital gauge that has, ride modes and navigation and all that kind of stuff in there. I thought that would make sense. But when I zoom in on the gauge, the mounting rib kind of over the gauge looks like it's the same as the previous year Lowrider S, just maybe spaced out from the fairing a little more. And as I really look at it, I kind of feel like the bars just have maybe more pullback. Now that could be simply a parts and accessories thing with different risers. Now, when they came out with the new generation of Road Glide, they changed the bars up there, made them a little more ergonomically friendly. I've heard that the bars on the Street Glide Ultra that's coming out, we'll talk more about that in a second, are going to be taller. So maybe they've made the bars on the Lowrider S a little more ergonomically friendly for us old fogies that don't want to be hunched over and ride in quite such an aggressive position. I do think the new controls and all those things are, if not coming with rider aids on every bike now or a new gauge for navigation and stuff now, it enables that to come in the future. The controls are in place that they can use for that. Now, I don't know that they're going to be configured exactly the same way as they are on the Street Glide and Road Glide, because these bikes have the big Skyline OS display and you don't need that, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. I do think that we're going to have different controls there. Maybe it's the same housings with different button configurations or something else. Let me know what you think and which one would you prefer to see on the cruisers if they are changing the controls. The one from the Nightster Special or the one from the Street Glide and Road Glide? All right, now let's talk about number 6, new models. New models. Well, we know from a leak from motorcycle.com that there is going to be a Street Glide Ultra, and we expect that to have the Tour Pack, lowers, taller windshield, taller bars. Those are the kinds of things to make it more like the Ultra Limited. I had said months ago I thought they were going to cancel the Ultra Limited and the Road Glide Limited and that they were just going to do packages. And there is some indication that they were going down that path and maybe still going down that path for the Road Glide. When they were updating the website for the carryover models, I found in the Road Glide configurator a limited package that did put lowers and a trunk on the Road Glide. But it was not the new trunk that has been leaked. So maybe they started down that path and they decided not to do that, and they're going to do full-fledged models like the Street Glide Ultra, replacing the Ultra Limited, and a Road Glide Limited, to carry on what they've been doing with the Road Glide Limited in the past, but with the new body style and the new Tour Pack and new lowers. I don't know for sure what we're getting there with the Road Glide Limited. I don't know what the Street Glide Ultra looks like, but I have a feeling I'm going to find out on January 23rd when they do their launch. That's going to be really exciting to see. Now, is there any other new models coming? Well, I hear there may be something coming in the sport category. I've speculated they need to do something else in the sport category that's more Bronc-esque, like a Street Fighter style bike. And with everything they've been doing with the Hooligan Race Series and the Pan America, I think it makes sense to make a 1250 Pan America into a street model, whether they call it the Bronx or something else. And I guess we'll see in January if that's going to happen or not. I hope they come out with something new on the Rev Max platform. I think they need to do some more models there, some more experimenting to see if they can get some people on board. Now, there were no Revolution Max carryover models on the website either. That seems a little strange as well. I mean, are they the Sportster S and the Nightster Special and all of those, or are they getting some kind of upgrade that's changing them in a way that they would not be considered a carryover model? I've heard a few rumors that they did something to the left side of the bikes to make them more attractive. People complained about the aesthetics of the left side of the bike. So maybe they've cleaned something up or changed something in the design there that they don't want people to see until they do the launch. Now, we've talked about what's maybe new. We haven't talked about what's going away. I have a sneaking suspicion that the Softail standard with the 107 is going to go away. By taking that bike out of the cruiser lineup, we make a larger gap between the Rev Max motors and the cruisers to help differentiate that. If you don't like the Rev Max motors, but you can't afford to step up to the Street Bob, well, there's always used Harley Davidsons, and that's kind of been the approach Harley has taken, is like, if we can't get you into a new bike here, let us get you into a used bike. They really started buying up used bikes a few years ago when COVID was going on and stuff. So I think having used Harley Davidsons in there and the Harley Davidson marketplace is their kind of way of getting new riders into the Harley Davidson family, or bikers who are converting from other brands to Harley Davidson into the Harley Davidson family if they can't afford a brand new motorcycle. Anyway, y'all stay safe. Keep on riding. We'll see you in the next one. Oh yeah, don't forget to like and to subscribe.